started with a check I couldn't really afford to write. It was January 17th, 2019. Cold as death outside, the kind of wind that bites through your coat no matter how thick it is. I sat at our rickety old kitchen table with the overhead light buzzing above me, pen in hand, and tears swimming behind my eyes. The check was made out for $75,000, more than I had ever spent on anything in my entire life. My husband, God rest his soul, would have called it lunacy. But I told myself it was love. I gave that money to my only son, Nathan. My boy. The one I raised alone after his father died of a heart attack in '98. Nathan was only 12 then. He had trouble sleeping for months. I used to hold him at night until his sobs softened. I worked 2 jobs, cashier during the day and cleaning offices at night, just to keep the lights on and his shoes from falling apart. So when he came to me, nearly 20 years later, with wide eyes and a heart full of dreams, I couldn't say no. Ma, I want to open my own cafe. Artisan coffee, local pastries, a real community hub, he said, laying out sketches and spreadsheets like he was pitching to investors. I've got the location picked out. Rent's $4,500 a month, but it's worth it. Downtown, corner unit, foot traffic out the wazoo. He smiled like he used to when he was little and still believed in magic. And I melted. Even when I asked, "You sure about this, Nate? This isn't just a phase?" He said, "Ma, this is my life now. I just need someone to believe in me." So I did. I pulled from my retirement, my late husband's life insurance, what little was left, and cashed out a small CD early, losing $3,800 in penalties just to make it all work. Nathan was so grateful, he cried. He said, "You won't regret this, Ma. You'll see. I'll make you proud." For the first 6 months, I visited the cafe almost every week. It was small, Kazais. I'd take the bus across town, carrying a container of my homemade cinnamon scones, because Nathan always said mine were better than any bakery's. "Ma, people love your scones," he said one Saturday. "We should put them on the menu." I laughed, feeling light for the first time in years. He even had a little plaque made that read, "Evelyn's Scones," my name, right there next to the register. But things started shifting. Small things at first. The plaque disappeared one day. I asked about it, and Nathan just waved it off. "Oh, we're rebranding." The scones stopped appearing too, and I noticed the music changed. More modern, more influencer than indie. Then came the woman, Talia, a sharp, stylish brunette with long lashes and a tongue coated in sugar and poison. She introduced herself as Nathan's girlfriend, then later as the cafe's brand manager. She once looked me up and down when I walked in wearing my green coat, the same one I've had for 10 years, and said, "Oh, you're Nathan's mom. How authentic." I should have known then. The next week, when I visited, I noticed something odd. The barista, a kind college boy who always called me Miss Evelyn, whispered, "I think your order was comped, but I was told not to do that anymore." When I asked Nathan about it later that evening, he said, "Ma, it's just, we're trying to cultivate a different vibe. Young, urban, you know?" I said, "Am I embarrassing you, Nathan?" He rubbed his face, looked away, and muttered, "You just don't fit the brand anymore." That stung, more than I let on, but I stayed silent. For weeks I stayed away. I told myself it was just growing pains. Maybe I was being too sensitive. I'd seen him less and less anyway. His calls became texts. Then the texts turned into silence. But I didn't want to believe he'd drift that far. Not my Nathan. Until August. That was the day my sister-in-law, Diane, came back from a trip to the city and said, "Evelyn, I tried to stop in at Nathan's Cafe. They've remodeled. Fancy now." But they had a sign. Closed for private event. Looked like a birthday party. Had balloons. There was a girl at the door with a clipboard. I told her I was your sister-in-law, and she said, "Sorry, it's invite only. Staff and high-tier clients only." What's that supposed to mean? I didn't even know he was having a party. So I took the 8:10 a.m. bus the next morning and stood across the street from the cafe. The awning was different. Sleeker. Gone were the chalkboard signs and warm lights. It looked like something out of a design magazine. Through the tinted windows, I saw Talia behind the counter laughing, tossing her hair. Nathan sat in the back corner with a group of people, sipping wine. I didn't go in. That evening, I called. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Nate, can we talk?" No reply. 2 days later, I got a message. A single line. "We're trying to keep the vibe upscale, Ma. Maybe it's better if you don't drop in unannounced anymore." I stared at those words for what felt like an hour. Upscale, like I was a problem. An eyesore, a shameful reminder. I typed back, "I gave you $75,000. Is that not worth a coffee?" He left me on red. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stared out the window, remembering how he used to hold my hand crossing the street, how he cried into my lap when his father died, how I scrubbed toilets at 11 p.m. while he slept with a full belly because I wouldn't let him go hungry. And now I was too low class to visit, but I wasn't done. I was just starting to understand what kind of man my son had become and what kind of mother I'd have to be now. I spent the next 2 weeks doing something I hadn't done in a long time, going through old boxes, not for sentimental riaz. ASINs. No, those came later. Right then, I was looking for proof. Paper, receipts, bank transfers. I was raised in a generation where you don't just give away that kind of money without a paper trail, and thank God I hadn't. In the bottom drawer of my old oak filing cabinet, behind the utility bills and birth certificates, I found it. Copy of the cashier's check from January 17th, 2019, $75,000, issued from my retirement account. Email chain with Nathan's business plan, initial cost estimates, and his promise. "Once things take off, I'll pay you back monthly, even if it's just $500 a month. You'll never worry again, Ma." But I never asked for repayment. Not once. Not until that day he told me I didn't belong. And still, I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I just wanted my son to look me in the eye and remember who I was, so I called him again. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. The next day, I tried Talia's number. She picked up. Her tone was bright, but brittle. "Oh, Evelyn, everything okay? I'd like to speak to Nathan." She sighed. "He's been busy, expanding, you know. Investors, branding, partnerships. It's been hectic. Tell him his mother would like 15 minutes of his time. In person. That's all." There was a pause. Then she said, "He'll text." He didn't. Instead, I got a letter. A damn letter. On Café letterhead, no less. Folded neatly and delivered in an envelope with no return address. It read, "Dear Mom, I know things have been tense lately, and I'm sorry you feel excluded, but I need you to understand, the Café is evolving. We're moving into a new market. Higher-end clientele, brand partnerships, influencer events. There's an image we're cultivating, and I need to make decisions that reflect that. I'll always love you, but right now, I have to put the business first. Nathan." Not love Nathan, just Nathan. No mention of the money, no apology, not even a phone call. It wasn't the letter that broke me. It was what came next. Diane, my sister-in-law, called me a few days later. She had been scrolling through Instagram and said, "Evelyn, you might want to see this." Nathan had posted a video, a sleek, overproduced thing with mood lighting, jazz music, and soft focus footage of latte art. In it, he described his self-made journey to launching the Café. "I started from scratch," he said, smiling at the camera. "Built this place with my bare hands. No investors, no family money, just grit, passion, and vision." I almost dropped the phone. Self-made? No family money? Was I a ghost now? Was that $75,000 just some figment of my imagination? The comments were full of adoration. "Wow, you're such an inspiration. We love a rags-to-riches story. Hard work pays off." I sat in my quiet kitchen, the hum of the fridge suddenly unbearable, and felt something inside me go cold, not sad, not disappointed, cold, dead. That was when the change began. I didn't tell anyone, not at first, but I started documenting everything, every dollar I spent, every message, every visit I made to the Café. I printed the bank transfers, highlighted the amounts, logged the dates. I knew it wouldn't get my son back, but it would make damn sure he never erased me again. Meanwhile, life went on. Bills, groceries, quiet dinners for one. I stopped baking. I stopped visiting the cafe. My friends would ask, "How's that business your son started?" And I'd smile and say, "Oh, he's doing just fine," then change the subject. What could I say? That I funded his dream and became an inconvenience? That I gave birth to a man who saw me as a liability to his brand? In mid-September, I got a visit from Claire, one of my former co-workers at the grocery store. Yeah, and she told me something that turned the cold in my chest into a slow-burning fire. "They've franchised," she said. "Nathan's opening a second location on the west side. Saw it in the paper. Some influencer is backing him. Said he's the future of urban coffee culture." Franchised. And still not a single penny paid back. That night, I sat at my kitchen table again, just like I had the day I wrote that check. But this time, there was no pen, no shaking hand, no tears, just clarity. I opened my laptop, logged into the email address I had created for one reason only, and began composing a message. To press@brewlinecollective.com. Subject: Financial misrepresentation. Nathan Caro. Hello, I am the mother of Nathan Caro, founder of Brewline Café. I am writing to inform you that his statements regarding no family money or no investors are false. He received $75,000 in startup funds from me in January 2019, all documented with proof of transaction, written communication, and witness accounts. I have no intention of being slandered or erased, while others profit from a fabricated narrative. Regards, Evelyn Caro. I didn't hit send. Not yet, but I saved it. Along with everything else. I had a new plan now. Not outbursts, not shouting matches or confrontations in his cafe. No, that's what he expected. That's what would make me low class. No, I would wait, watch, gather, because sometimes the most dangerous revenge is the quiet one. The one that doesn't arrive until you think you're safe. October came with an early chill that year. The leaves outside my apartment window turned too fast, like even the trees were in a hurry to let go of what no longer served them. I spent most of those days in silence, not sulking, not grieving, planning. I don't know when exactly the anger turned into purpose. Maybe it was when I saw the cafe's website, all glossy photos and bios written like they were pitching a Netflix show. Nathan's profile listed him as a pioneer in modern cafe culture. It said he was self-funded, self-made, and self-taught. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called a lawyer. Not for a lawsuit. Not yet. Just a consultation. Her name was Laura Cheng, a petite woman in her 40s with a voice that didn't bother pretending to be soft. I sat across from her in her downtown office, the one I paid $250 to visit for exactly 45 minutes. "Do you have a contract?" she asked, tapping her pen against her legal pad. I shook my head. "Only emails, bank proof, screenshots of the cafe's branding, my son's acknowledgement of the loan." She glanced through the folder I'd assembled, crisp, color-coded tabs, labeled Initial Funding, Proof of Ownership Promises, Marketing Lies. I had spent 3 full nights compiling it. After 10 minutes of reviewing, Laura leaned back in her chair. "Well," she said, "you don't have a formal loan agreement, but you do have leverage, public misrepresentation, ethical red flags, emotional damage, certainly. Legal? Debatable. But if you go public, you have power." I looked at her. "Would it ruin him?" "Maybe not legally," she said. "But financially, socially, if you play this right? Oh yes, it could cost him." I didn't smile. I just nodded. A week later, I heard from someone I hadn't expected. Derek, the first barista Nathan ever hired. He was a sweet boy, maybe 22 Thumasa, and he started. Always offered to carry my bag, always asked about my day. After the rebranding, I figured he'd been pushed out like me. Turns out, he had been. He messaged me on Facebook. "Hey, Ms. Evelyn, I hope you're okay. I left the cafe a few months ago. Just wasn't the same anymore. But I wanted to tell you, I saw Nathan throw away the plaque with your name on it, the scone one. He didn't even donate it, just dumped it in the back with the trash. That message sat in my inbox like a wound. He didn't just remove me, he erased me. But I thanked Derek, and asked him a few careful questions. Had he seen any investors? Did he remember anything specific about how Nathan described the money to customers? Did he still have his old pay stubs? He answered everything. By November, I had a small but growing pile of testimonials from ex-employees, quiet messages, screenshots. One girl even forwarded me an email from Talia that said, "Let's avoid using the word family in brand language. Nathan prefers we keep the narrative aspirational, not sentimental." I printed every word. Meanwhile, the cafe's second location was preparing for a soft launch. Nathan posted daily updates, flashy countdowns, influencer invites. He even hosted a pre-opening cocktail event, and I saw a photo of him with Talia in the Chronicle. She wore a velvet dress. He wore a tailored suit. They looked like royalty, and I looked like a ghost. But I had a plan now, and it didn't involve screaming matches or picket signs. It involved timing, silence, and the truth. So I waited until December 1st, 2020, the day of the second cafe's official opening. It was a cold, clear morning. I woke up early, made myself tea, and sat at my old kitchen table with my laptop. At 7:45 a.m., I opened the email draft I'd written months ago. I added a few new attachments, documents, receipts, screen grabs, even a short, polite note to the investors. Then I hit send to local journalists, to food bloggers, to sponsors, to Brewline's own PR manager. The subject line read, "Correction regarding Brewline founder's origin story from his mother." And just like that, I became the storm he never saw coming. By noon, my phone was buzzing. Diane called. "Evelyn, it's everywhere. Did you mean to?" "Yes," I said calmly. I did. Local gossip blogs ran headlines like, "Self-made? Brewline's founder allegedly received $75,000 from mother he now ignores. Mom-funded cafe empire gets ghosted." I didn't even need to speak. The story spoke for itself. By that evening, the Brewline Instagram had turned off comments. Talia posted a cryptic story. "Haters always come for the ones rising." But the public didn't like it. They started digging. One person found the old scone plaque. Someone had posted a photo of it from 2019. Another found Nathan's comment on a Reddit AMA where he claimed no family help whatsoever. And then the backlash turned sharp. I didn't gloat. I didn't comment. I didn't post. I simply printed everything. Nathan called 2 days later. I didn't recognize the number. I almost didn't pick up. "Ma," he said, his voice low. "What? What did you do?" I stayed silent. "You're ruining me." I let that sit between us. Then I said slowly, "You ruined yourself when you decided I was too low class to be seen, when you rewrote our life." He started to speak, but I interrupted. "I asked you for 15 minutes, Nathan. You gave me a letter. Now the world knows what that letter cost you." Silence, heavy breathing. Then, "Do you want the money back?" I almost laughed. This wasn't about money anymore. But I said, "You can't buy me back. You made that clear when you cashed the check and threw away the plaque." Click. He hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time, not crying, not shaking, just still. The next day I received a package, a small battered wooden plaque. "Evelyn's scones." A sticky note was attached. "I found this in the trash months ago. I couldn't throw it away. Thought you might want it back. Derek." I ran my fingers over the engraved letters. The gold paint was chipped, but I smiled. Not because it was over, because I wasn't done. December faded into January with the kind of cold that settles into your bones, the kind that makes you wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. But I felt warm. Not because of revenge, not because I'd won. There's no victory in watching your child unravel. There's only justice, a quiet rebalancing, and something I hadn't felt in years: power. It had been 3 weeks since I sent the email, 3 weeks since the story broke, 3 weeks since Nathan's shiny empire lost its sparkle. I watched from a distance, never interfered. I simply observed, the way a mother watches her child walk toward a mistake they were too proud to turn from. The consequences came fast. A podcast canceled his guest spot. An investor, a venture group from San Diego, quietly pulled out. I saw it posted on LinkedIn. Yelp reviews turned sour. Some people stood outside the new cafe with signs that read, "Nothing self-made about betrayal." I didn't ask for any of it. I never told anyone what to do. People just don't like liars. On January 15th, I received a call from someone named Marcia Quinn, the editor-in-chief of City Tastemakers, a local lifestyle magazine that had previously featured Nathan's Café in a glowing spread. She was professional, but cold. "Ms. Caro, I'm just following up. Would you be open to giving your side of the story formally? We'd like to do a follow-up piece." I paused, then asked, "Why now?" She didn't hesitate. "Because people relate to you more than they do to him. And frankly, because truth sells." I turned her down. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need a microphone. Still, the fallout reached me in ways I hadn't expected. One night, I came home from my walk to find a small envelope slipped under my door. No return address, just my name in Nathan's handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check, $75,000, along with a short note, "I'm sorry. I know it's not enough. N." I stared at it for a long time. Not angry, not moved. Just tired. I folded the check in half and placed it inside a copy of my will. Then I sat down and wrote a new version of that will, a new power of attorney, a new set of contingencies for my funeral, my estate, and everything else he once assumed would be his. He gave me my money back, but he would never again hold anything else of mine. A few days later, I got a knock on my door. I almost didn't answer it, but I recognized the silhouette through the frosted glass. Nathan stood there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes low, shoulders curled in like a scolded child. "Hi, Ma." I didn't say anything, just opened the door wider and let him walk in. He looked around like he hadn't been there in years, and he hadn't really. Not since the early cafe days. He didn't sit, just stood by the window and stared out. "They're leaving," he said. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "The influencers, the sponsors, Talia. She said I was too messy to manage." I almost smiled. Instead I asked, "And now?" He turned to me, eyes red. "I don't know. I thought I had to become something bigger. I thought, if I didn't look successful enough, people wouldn't take me seriously. You wouldn't be proud." My voice was calm. "You think pride looks like silence? Like letting yourself be turned into a brand?" He looked down. "I didn't mean to erase you." "But you did," I said. He sank into the old recliner, the one his father used to fall asleep in after dinner. For a moment, he was that boy again. 12 years old, knee is bruised from soccer, asking if I could make pancakes for dinner. "I remember when I was little," he whispered. "I thought you were the strongest person in the world." I didn't respond, because I was still the strongest person in the room. He stayed for an hour, talked a bit, apologized again, said maybe he'd scale the cafe back, try to reconnect with his roots. I nodded politely, but offered no advice. I'd given him all the wisdom I had, and all the money, too. This new version of him, he'd have to find his own path. When he left, he hugged me. It felt like hugging a stranger wearing my son's skin. Later that night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I baked. Not for anyone. Not to please or impress. Just for me. I pulled out the old family recipe, the one scribbled in the back of my mother's church cookbook, Evelyn's cinnamon scones. I added a little extra nutmeg, just the way Nathan used to like them. When they came out of the oven, the smell filled the whole apartment. Warm sugar, butter, cinnamon, like the past rising up in a cloud. I wrapped half in foil and put them in the freezer. I didn't know why at the time. Habit, maybe, but something told me this wasn't the end. Not quite. 3 days later, I got a voicemail. It was a woman's voice, shaky, nervous. "Mrs. Caro? My name's Emily. I was Nathan's assistant, briefly. I saw what happened and I just wanted to say thank you for speaking up. You weren't the only one he erased." She hung up. That night, I opened a fresh notebook and wrote down her name. Because maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just about one mother. Maybe this was about all the women like me. Women who built empires behind closed doors, who scrubbed and stitched and served in silence. And maybe, just maybe, it was time someone started collecting our names. The snow had started to melt by the end of February. The sidewalks were still slick and the air still sharp, but there were hints of spring, a warmth beneath the cold, buds on the trees, The kind of change you don't see all at once, but feel in your bones. That's how the shift in me happened too. Quietly, gradually, irreversibly. A month after Nathan returned my money, I heard from the landlord of the original Café location, the one I had walked into so many times, carrying Tupperware full of scones, always hoping to see my son smile like he used to. He called me personally. "Ms. Caro, sorry to bother you, but I remember you being involved at the beginning. I thought you should know. They're closing that location. Lease won't be renewed." I thanked him, politely, and hung up. Then I sat in silence, not because I was shocked. I wasn't, but because I realized something. He burned the house I built, just to feel like he'd built it himself. And now he was standing in the ashes, trying to gather the smoke into something that looked like success. But this isn't just about Nathan anymore. This is about me. About what I've learned, what I've earned, what I refuse to lose. I started seeing a therapist, believe it or not. A nice woman named Grace. Young, kind, blunt in the right ways. At our second session, she asked, "Why didn't you just demand the money back sooner?" And I said, "Because it was never about the money." She smiled like she already knew. It was about being seen. In early March, I got a call from a woman named Carla Navarro. She runs a local women's business group. Small business owners, retired professionals, even a few college students trying to start something of their own. She said, "I heard about what you did, quietly, through the grapevine. We'd love for you to come speak to our group." I almost laughed. "Speak? Me? I was a C. Sheer, Carla. I cleaned offices. I didn't even finish college," she said. "Exactly. That's why they'll listen." So I said yes. I stood in front of 27 women in a tiny community room behind the library. No microphones, no stage. Just a circle of chairs and a whiteboard with "Women Who Build" written in pink marker. And I told them the truth. Not just about Nathan, but about raising a son alone. About being invisible in the eyes of people who use your labor, your love, and your savings to climb, only to pretend you were never there. I told them about $75,000 that bought me the worst heartbreak of my life and the clearest vision of who I truly was. Some of them cried. A few took notes. One young woman said, "My brother did something similar with our family's house. You just gave me the courage to speak up." I walked home that night under a pale moon and felt lighter than I had in years. Then came the letter. Not from Nathan, from Talia. A typed note printed on thick, expensive paper. "Dear Mrs. Caro, I wanted to reach out and express my regrets for how things unfolded between us. I understand emotions were high and mistakes were made. I hope we can all move forward with grace and professionalism. No apology, no ownership, just poison wrapped in velvet." I folded the letter once, clean and sharp, and placed it into the trash. With grace and professionalism, of course. By April, the second Café location quietly closed too. Rumors circled. Missed payments, a lawsuit from a supplier, even whispers of a small group of former employees threatening legal action over wrongful termination. I didn't follow it all. I didn't need to. Nathan tried calling again. I let it go to voicemail. Not out of pettiness, out of peace, because I had said what I needed to say. And now he could live with the echoes. One afternoon, I opened the freezer and saw the foil-wrapped package I'd almost forgotten. My cinnamon scones. I warmed them in the oven, made a cup of tea, and sat at the same kitchen table where this all began. The smell filled the room again. Sugar and spice, history and healing. I ate slowly, gratefully, alone, and I smiled. People always think betrayal looks like daggers and explosions, but they forget it can be a door quietly closing, a check quietly written, a plaque quietly thrown away. And revenge? It's not always loud either. Sometimes it's a woman standing alone in her kitchen, stronger than she's ever been. Sometimes revenge is survival with your dignity intact.